Hey guys, Connor here with Chrome Designs, and thank you so much for watching this video. Today we have a very exciting After Effects tutorial I'm going to be showing to you guys, and I'm going to be looking at a particle transition to text. Now I actually made a video similar to this using the same kind of particles to text transformation, but this was for Cinema 4D. However, it did receive a large amount of views and reasonable good feedback, so I was playing around with After Effects to try and recreate something along those lines, and I've simply come up with a nice intro that can be used for all kinds of promos and everything. And as you can see in this preview here, this is it. Now we are going to be using Trapcode form, so you will need this plugin before we go ahead and get started. You can go ahead and get this, search on YouTube how to get it or whatever, that's up to you. But anyway, go ahead and we'll get started. So I'm just going to simply go to, I'm going to start a new project in fact, so I'll go File, not Open Project, what am I thinking, new project. Yeah, I'll save, why not? And when the new project opens, we're simply going to go to Composition and New Composition. I'm going to call this Chrome, obviously for one obvious reason, and I'm going to be using 1920 by 1080, so I'm going to be working with the 1080p resolution. 29.97 resolutions works fine for keeping the file size down, and I'm going to be using about 10 seconds duration. If you're going to be using a promo or something a little bit longer, obviously you can increase the duration, but you can obviously alter this later on. So there we go, we have a composition. Now I'm going to be adding a PNG file that I created in Photoshop. It literally took me about, I'm not sure how long it took about 30 seconds to make. If I go ahead and drag it in there, literally it is some white text positioned in the center, more allocated to the right. I just saved it as a PNG, so it has a transparent background, and this makes it a lot easier for editing later on, and it works better with form in my opinion. So now we've got that in. And in this composition here, we're going to simply go ahead and we're going to make another composition, and we'll call this main. And again, we're going to have the same resolution, everything exactly the same. So now we've got main here. We're going to go to Chrome. I'm going to have to duplicate this layer. I'm going to duplicate it twice, so we have Chrome 2 and Chrome 3. And the second one I'm going to rename to A, and this is going to stand for alpha. And the third one I'm going to rename to D, and this is going to be called displacement. So now once this is all in, we're going to go ahead and drag in Chrome, we're going to drag in the D, and we're going to drag in the A. What you actually want to do is you want to have the A on top, the Chrome at the bottom, and the D in the middle. So that's good for alignment so far. So we're going to make a new solid. Now this is going to be the particles we're going to create here. So we're going to call this Form, and we'll go to Effect, Trapcode, and we'll go ahead and add in the form plugin like so. So obviously we have a pretty hideous square right now, which is obviously not that great. So we need to go ahead and we'll start with base form, and size X, we need to make these the same size as it is for our composition. So mine's 1920 by 1080, and size Z we're going to have for 0. Particles in X we're going to make about 500. And particles in Y we're going to make about 400, and we'll lower the particles in Z to about 1, like so. There we go, that's looking good, that's looking okay for base form as it stands. Moving on to particle, we're going to go ahead and just crank up the size to about 2. We'll keyframe this later on, but this just means you can see it clearly quicker on before we actually get into the whole design of it. So particle, that's looking okay for now. Shading is okay. Fractal field, in fractal field we're going to change the flow Z, and we're going to change this to about 50, and again we're going to change the F scale to about 17. Now this will change depending on your composition settings, so if you're using the same ones as me I recommend about 17, but again if you're using something a little bit lower like 1280 by 720, you can just lower this down to about 15 or around about that kind of mark. So while we're here, we're going to change this displacement mode. I'm going to change to XYZ individual. Make sure your little keyframe selector here is 0 seconds at the very beginning, and we're just going to keyframe X, Y, and Z displace. And we'll come back to that later. And then we'll go ahead and we'll move on to layer maps. Color and alpha. We'll change the layer to second one, which is alpha the A. And we'll change it RGBA to RGBA and map over to X and Y. So this will map over onto the text. Now onto displacement, we'll change to individual X, Y, and Z, and we'll map over to X and Y again. And the layer map for Z, we're going to change to the D, which stands for displacement. Okay, and now while we're here, we'll keyframe the strength as well. So obviously we've got 4 keyframes now selected, so we can go ahead and close this off. And if you hit U on your keyboard, you'll see that all of these come up so far, and we're going to be working with the keyframes to actually create it transition into the text. And if you actually zoom in here, you can see there's something going on behind this text here. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply keyframe the strength, and the strength is going to be 50 here, and the X displace is going to be about 1000. The Y display is going to put about 800, and the Z display is I'm going to make about 2000, like so. So it kind of comes in as in there's some close to the camera, and it's really the depth that gets more depth, so it's not kind of completely linear and flat. So that's okay. As you can see here, it all starts to move around the text, which is Trapcode form. But obviously we want it to reveal into the text, so we're going to basically make another keyframe where we lower the strength and all these settings. I want it to come in around about 3 seconds, so I'm going to lower the strength to about 0 here, and just simply 0 on all of these, like so. So if you go ahead and just scrub through here, you can see that there's basically forms into the text like so. But obviously the text is already there, so you need to keyframe the opacity of the text so it's not there for the beginning, but it slowly fades into the particles when it starts to form. So to do this, we're going to go to the Chrome layer, and we're going to hit T, which brings up the opacity options, and we want to make keyframe the opacity here is going to be about 0, and moving on, as soon as it comes in will be 100, obviously, like so. Now getting these exactly lined up is somewhat an art. Obviously I'll close off the D and the A for now. So somewhat an art. As you can see, it looks kind of dodgy right there, so we need to make sure that it is aligned properly. Obviously you've got a lot of time, I don't want to spend too long just working completely on moving keyframes in the opacity, so we'll simply say that is about right for now. Okay, there we go. So obviously it comes in there, and particles, there we are, we've got the text. That's looking all good so far. Now we want it to zoom out, well not zoom out, we want it to kind of produce particles at the end as kind of an end transition. So we're going to move along. So if it comes in about 3 seconds, if you show the text about 4 seconds-ish, along the 7 second mark, around about then, depends on kind of what quality you're going for, you just want to keyframe all these values again. So simply go ahead and click this little diamond over here, as well as the opacity here, in fact, on the Chrome layer. So then obviously we'll move over to about 8 seconds-ish. We'll work on these top layers. So the strength here will go to 50 again, and I'm going to add similar values, about 1000. You can use a little dragger to make more different looks, but it doesn't really matter. I usually like these settings. So 1000, 800, and 2000, not 200. There we go. So if you see there, it starts to explode again behind the text, which is pretty cool. Like so. And this is back out. So now I'm going to highlight all of these, and I'm going to move them over right to the end, just so it keeps on going, although we will alter this later on maybe. And so obviously the text is still there, so we're going to simply go ahead and keyframe this text again. So if it's 100 there, for example, move this forward just a tad, and we'll lower the opacity to about 0, like so. So if you see, okay, that's not exactly lined up, so we need to kind of alter these keyframes just so it looks around about like it could be. Look all right, there we go, that's looking good. Okay, so that's all right, and so over here it is looking good again. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to create a RAM preview for now, and just have a look and see how good it actually looks. Okay, so that looks good, but if you notice when it forms into the text, it looks slightly harsh. It looks like it's not doing much there, and it all of a sudden comes in too close. So it's a bit hard, like as I said, a bit harsh. So at the end it forms a bit out of character. So to kind of solve this, we highlight these keyframes, right click, go to keyframe assistant, and go easy ease. Again, you can press F9 on your keyboard if you will, but we'll go ahead and create another RAM preview, and you should be able to see a slight more kind of subtle and gentle reveal of the text like so. And that looks a lot better in my opinion. So there we go, we've simply got the kind of base of our whole transition text. And one other thing I like to do is if I go to particle, and I'm going to keyframe the size, okay? So when it goes over here, when everything goes to 0, I'm going to keyframe the size to 2. But at the start, I'm going to add a keyframe for 10, like so. So as you can see, the particles are a lot bigger here, and they kind of gradually get smaller to form with the actual text, like so. And I'm going to create a similar thing at the end. For example, the size there is going to be, so we'll click U again, like so. So the size will come up, and we simply keyframe this size here, and then go to the end as well, and then add 10. It'll create a similar thing just for the end, so the particles generally get bigger as they explode or form out. So that's looking good. Okay, so that's looking good as I just said. So we're going to go ahead and work on a background now. We'll simply go File, New, we'll make a new solid. Same kind of 1920 by 1080. And go ahead and just click a generate. I'm going to generate a ramp. Now, getting these right colours is kind of quite hard. I'm going to go for kind of bluey, whitey kind of colour in my. I think that suits it quite well. Okay, now I want it to be more. In fact, I'm going to change it to a radial, like so. So if you have a look here, that's a lot better than the black anyway. But obviously the white's a little bit too bright because this text. You want it to be able to be quite comfortably read. So that's looking good. Okay, we'll maybe make this colour just a little bit darker, just to create more contrast around the outside. There we go. And you know, that's looking pretty good so far. Now one other thing I like to do is add a motion blur to this form. So to do this, we're going to simply click on the motion blur, clicking these little circles up here, and then adding it onto the actual form layer. Now I would show you, if I created a RAM preview, it would take a long time, but when you actually do this, you'll notice that it makes it look a lot more fluid, and it adds kind of a more elegant kind of feel to it. So that's looking okay. But still, you know, the particles are a bit full on. So one way I like to get around this is on this particle thing up here, I'm going to change the opacity random to 100. So that basically means there's more random in the opacity. So some will have 10 opacity, 10% opacity, some will have 100, some will have 0, some will have 50. So it really varies it up. I really like this kind of look. I think it looks really sleek. And so you can see here, just with these screenshots, it's looking, coming together quite well. But if you want to look at my preview, it had a shadow. So we're going to be creating a shadow now. This is really, really simple, but it creates a really nice look. So we're going to simply highlight the form and these 3 layers. And we're going to go right click, and we're going to go pre-compose. And I'm going to call this, in fact I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to duplicate it. And the one that we duplicate, we're going to call... we're going to rename this. I'm going to rename this shadow. Make sure it's the one underneath. So now we need to make sure a 3D layer is on this layer. We're going to simply rotate it. So go down here and transform. And we're going to alter the X rotation to about, I'm going to make it -80. Like so. And obviously we're going to drag it down because it is a shadow and it's down here. So if we kind of scrub through here, I'm going to change it from full to a little bit low just so it's easily viewed for you guys. We've got a nice shadow formatting, and as you can see there, but obviously that's not a real life shadow. We're going to alter this so it makes it look like it's more subtle. So we're going to go, and on here I'm going to go to Effect, and we're going to go to, we're going to generate Fill. We'll add a fill to the layer, and we're simply going to go to Blur and Sharpen, and add a Gaussian blur, like so. So the fill, we're going to make a nice grey colour, like so. We can change these, and we'll increase the blur as well. That grey is a little bit too light. It needs to be able to be stood out. So the blurriness is okay. I like it to about 27. I think that gives a good kind of contrast. Maybe just a little bit lighter, like so. And there we have it. You can see a nice shadow coming in here, and that really makes a more kind of 3D studio look, which really adds to the whole thing, I feel. One other thing, in this pre-comp one, we're going to rename this. We're going to rename this title, and we'll go to effect, and I'm going to add a stylize and glow. Now it's kind of just generally literally what it does. So it does what it says on the tin, and it's going to kind of glow around. I quite like this look. Kind of again, it makes it a lot more elegant. So if we increase the intensity here, you can see that it looks quite nice on the text and everything. So it makes it there's more of a shine going on, especially even when you go to the end as well, like so. And there we literally have it. We've got most of the stuff going on here, and the title, everything is looking pretty much in place. You know, there's other little things you can add. For example, I had the little text underneath that revealed. That is simply just text with opacity change and everything. I added a little shine on the text that came across. That's just by using a few of these effects over here, and that's all depends on you. So you can create whatever you want. There's other little things you can add. In fact, one more thing maybe before I do go, if I make a new solid, okay, and I'm just going to drag this below the shadow, I'm going to go to effect, generate, and I'm going to generate a 4-color gradient. Now this is a quick one. I kind of like to create a nice light kind of thing instead of actually using the light itself. This gives a good effect. So I'm going to change all these colors to black apart from the pink one bottom left, and I'm going to change this color to a nice orange color like so. That's looking good. I'm going to move it over more into the center over here. Now obviously this looks pretty cool, and it kind of goes against what we just completely done. So we're going to get rid of the black. So by doing this, we're going to change the blending mode to screen, and this will basically get rid of the black. So we've just got the orange light. Now when this is added in, obviously you can change all of these to whatever you want. You can move one over, you can make one red if you wanted to, you could make one any colour you want. If you wanted to add a bit more blue in there, it really adds for a nice feel. I like anyway. I think it looks quite good. But we're going to leave this one to black, and you know, you can move it over however you want, really, whatever kind of floats your boat. Whatever you think looks quite good. You know, you can lower the opacity as well to about 75% if it's too strong. But that's creating a nice kind of effect. So if I quickly create a nice RAM preview, I'll hopefully wait for it to go until the text actually forms. Maybe looking at it just a bit there, maybe the shadow is a bit too dark in my eyes, but I really like the colours going on in the background. But anyway, I hope you guys have learnt something from this anyway so far. You can use this loads of different intros, most things, anything. This kind of effect can be applied. Anything that reveals, it's generally just a transition, like a custom transition. So most things just with text coming in, you know, this could be involved. It could, again, like I said, a whole intro, a whole promotional video, anything like that, because it does look really professional, especially when it's done right and the keyframes I got into perfect synchronization, so it looks completely fluent. It looks really professional, kind of like proper like studio finish. So the text actually formed now, so we're going to go ahead and have a look at this. Now, I think that looks really good. I'm really liking this effect. I think that keyframe looks quite good. Maybe the opacity should have come in just a little bit quicker, but you know, that's a bit too late for that now. Well, it's not, but I'm not going to bore you with altering the opacity. I've shown you the skills. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you learned something. So yeah, thanks a lot, and I'm sure I'll see you guys soon. So thanks for that. See you later. Bye.